All right. Cool.
Great.
Just letting
I think
people.
this will be a straightforward meeting.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right.
I need to get the chicken on.
And then if she has slides, I know we're recording right now. If she has slides, I'm able to make her present. Great, thank you.
I'm gonna mute myself so I can make the chicken.
Thank you. We know it is sometimes difficult for people to make certain times for meetings. So one thing we really like to do is when we have these great presentations to record them, and then we send them out to the membership afterwards. And usually we get, a few more views from that as well.
It's fine with me, no problem.
Okay. I think Michelle should be coming through. Are you both, now Anna, you are in City of Alameda, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Are you guys enjoying the weather today?
Oh, it's been so nice to have sunshine finally.
Yeah. I know. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old and forced them to help me in the garden this evening. All right. Well, it looks like we have a quorum, and I'm sure some people will join late, but since we have 2 special guests on the call today, why don't we go ahead and get started? So as I mentioned, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We're joined by Anna, is it Rossi or Rossi?
Rossi.
Rossi,
Yeah.
president of Alameda Shelter in Peace, to discuss some of the challenges in housing and how this organization is working to overcome them and what we can do to support them. As we all know, the housing crisis is such a big initiative for the party. So it's great to have Anna here and her expertise for how we can get more involved. And then after Anna, we are joined by Austin Tam, who is our local Alameda representative on the Alameda County Democratic Central Committee, who will give us a few updates on what's happening out of the county Dem party. 2 really quick announcements before we turn it over to Anna. There's going to be a workshop on updating the bylaws on Saturday, June 15th, 2 p.m. at Wyeth McAdams' house. If you are interested in participating or want to send her some input on the bylaws, you can text her at 510-717-8343. And then also, as we prepare for November, we're looking to host a fundraising event next month. Logistics are still coming together, but we're hoping to bring together some of our local elected officials and get our members and local Democrats to generate some extra funds that our club can use toward campaigning in this very, very critical election coming up this fall. All right, and with that, Anna, I will turn it over to you.
All right, well, thank you. And thank you very much for inviting me to speak to you tonight. I'm going to be speaking mainly about Shelter in Peace, but in order to speak about Shelter in Peace, I have to speak about Welcome the Stranger, because Shelter in Peace grew out of Welcome the Stranger. In 2016, try this again. In 2016, Pope Francis asked each of the Catholic churches in the world to take in 1 refugee family and to accompany that family until they were independent. The 4 Catholic churches in Alameda decided this was something that we could do. And we set up an organization of complete volunteers from the 4 churches. and we called it the Alameda Deanery Welcome the Stranger Refugee Resettlement Program. And Welcome the Stranger has now been in existence for 7 years, and we're still going strong. And every year we take in one refugee or immigrant family. They come from all over the world, wherever they happen to be. When they need a house and they need a support group, we're there. So our goal for Welcome the Stranger is to accompany one family a year and to treat them like they're our own family. So we do everything that you would do for your own family. We help them to learn English. We help them to get a job. We help them to learn our culture and to find a way to live here comfortably, because our culture is very different than most of the cultures that refugees and immigrants come from. We also help them with finances and budgets, and financially help them until they get settled to be able to take care of themselves. So in our first year in 2016, we found that the biggest problem with trying to help refugees and immigrants was finding housing. It was just literally impossible. It was a crushing task. In 2016, I went from real estate office to management group to individual landlords, and I asked people, would you be willing to rent a rental unit at below market price a little bit to a refugee family? And what I heard over and over and over again is, we don't rent to refugees. We don't rent to people who don't have a rental history. We don't rent to people who don't have a banking history, and we just can't do it. And many of the people that were saying this were actually people who were at one time refugees. And I was just astounded at the result. I'm an employment lawyer. I understand discrimination, but our families didn't need a lawsuit. They needed a place to live. For the first 2 months where our first family was here, they had to live in a hotel because we literally could not find any place in Alameda that people would rent to welcome the stranger and a refugee family. Finally, we found a basement apartment that somebody was willing to rent at full cost, and it was really expensive, but it was the only place this family, was a mom and dad and a 6-month-old baby, could live. And so we got, we took that place, and I kept thinking about what could we possibly do that would make this an easier task. And it was out of this real dilemma that Shelter in Peace came to life. I unexpectedly received a chunk of money, and I said, okay, I'm going to go buy a condo, and I'm going to use it for refugees. And can I rent it to a refugee family in a group and cover my HOA and cover my taxes and cover my insurance and still be okay with a little bit left over for maintenance? And so I did it. I bought a condo in San Leandro, and I was able to rent it at below market value. It's actually a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-story condo with a swimming pool, and I could rent it for $1,600, which a refugee family and a refugee support group can afford, and still come out fine. I didn't make money, but I didn't lose money. And so I figured, if I could do this, this isn't rocket science. Other people could do it. And that's when we started Shelter in Peace. And we looked for our mission being, can we find people and groups that would rent a rental unit to Shelter in Peace at below market value, and we would in turn rent it to a refugee or immigrant family that was supported by an accompany group like Welcome the Stranger. And it worked. So we found that when we incorporated in 2018, we ran completely by volunteers, and we could start to find groups and entities and people who would rent us houses. And I have to say that the first person we talked to was Tris Spencer at the city of Alameda. And after a lot of conversations, they found a 4-bedroom house that the city of Alameda was willing to rent to us. So we would have a unit in Alameda that we could use for refugees and immigrants and low income family. We still have that unit today. It's a wonderful unit in that it has 4 bedrooms, and many refugees and immigrants that come have very large families. So this house will actually take a family of 10. And the city was incredible in that they rent us the house for $1 a year. We're so grateful to them. We've now had the house almost 5 years, and we've had many families to be able to go through that and keep the families together. We've also rented units from St. Joseph's Basilica, from the United Methodist Church in Alameda, and from individual landlords. People are starting to come around and understand that we all need housing and we have to help each other. Because the mission of Shelter in Peace is transitional housing, that means that the people can only stay in it, the families can only stay in it for 1 day short of a year. If we go over that 1 day short of a year, then we become long-term housing and we have a problem. As traditional housing, in most cities, we are not covered by their rent control ordinance. And so having someone move out every year is an acceptable way. Having the landlords not facing difficulties with tenants is a real necessary thing to be able to get into transitional housing and to get groups to support. It's really important to Shelter in Peace that each family has a support group. And that support group can be anything. It can be a religious organization, it can be a public interest, it can be a group like the Rotaries, or just a group of 5 or 6 people who come together. And we've been able to do that with all of our families since 2017. The importance of that is that you can't just stick a family in a house, a refugee or immigrant family in a house, and expect them to be in any different place than they are a year later. They need the support group to help them learn how to live in our communities and how to live in our houses. And so we've been really lucky about finding support groups for our families that have worked hard to help the family learn English, get their kids in school, find jobs, and just how to learn to live within our culture. The other thing that the support group does is it guarantees the rent. So we can tell the landlord, you will get your rent every month. It doesn't depend on the refugee or immigrant family finding work. Most of the time they do, but it doesn't depend on that. It will depend on the support group. The support group signs the agreement. The support group also agrees that they will get the family out of the house at least 1 day short of a year. So we don't have to worry about losing our transitional housing status and becoming long-term housing. So this is what Shelter in Peace offers the landlord. We promise to take care of the house for free. So what we do is every month we give the landlord a rent check, less than they would get on the open market, but a rent check. We take care of the property. If anything happens, the pipes get stuffed up in the middle of the night, excuse me, Shelter in Peace takes care of that. We don't bother the landlord. If it's something we can't take care of and we have to hire somebody, Shelter in Peace pays for the first $250 of the repair. It's an easy situation for the landlord because really all they have to do is collect the check. And at the end of the tenancy, we go in and we clean up the house. If it needs to be painted, we paint the house. We make all the late night calls. And in between, we get the house ready for the next tenant. We also pay somebody to go in and spend an hour with the family in their language to teach them how to clean our houses, because our sense of what clean is very different than what clean is in many other countries. The other thing is this person teaches them how to use the appliances. Many of these families have never seen a dryer, have never seen a dishwasher, and a garbage disposal is just completely incomprehensible as to what you can put down and what you can't put down. So this hour that we pay a cleaning person to go and work with them is really a great benefit to them and to us and to the landlord, teaching people that you have to clean the dryer vent after every use is just completely foreign. SIP also completely furnishes the house from tablespoons on up to all furnishing. We don't do bed mattresses, towels, and sheets because of health issues. The support group has to do that. But everything else that the family needs in order to be able to live in that house, we supply. it's important because many refugees and most immigrants, refugees can usually only take one suitcase in with them. That's all they get per person. So they don't get to take their dishes and their silverware and their glasses. Immigrants usually have with them what they have on their back. They don't even have, sometimes many of them don't have the one suitcase. If they don't have a completely furnished house to move into, then becomes a great burden trying to find the things that you need. Since Shelter in Peace started in 2017, we've provided housing for over 125 people. The more units we can get, the more people we can provide housing for. So our biggest search is for rental units that people will rent to us. Right now, SIP has 6 rental units. A couple are 2 bedrooms, a couple are 3 bedrooms, and the one from the city is a 4-bedroom. I would really like to have 10 units by the end of the year. That's my goal. I don't want to stop there, but I want to get there. The benefit of Shelter in Peace transitional housing to the families and to the support groups and to the community is that the community of Alameda is able to experience the joys and benefits of a diverse group of people. And if you can't afford housing, you can't live here. You end up being in the streets of Oakland, or you end up being in the valley in not very good situations. So we feel that Shelter in Peace not only helps the individual families, but we help the community to be a better place. It also is a way of teaching people something that Pope Francis said: there are no thems and us's. We're all people. And when you can help your next door neighbor because you know they're refugees or immigrants, you become a better person yourself and a happier person when you see how happy they are because somebody is seeing them. They're not invisible, and helping to take care of them. In addition to the transitional housing, Shelter in Peace also has a program called GAP funding, and we give out 2 $300 stipends for 6 months to 2 families that just need that little extra to make the rent. Something happened, somebody got sick, the car broke down, and the money goes directly to the landlord. But it's for those situations where people are just on the edge and they were doing okay, and then all of a sudden they're not. And it's amazing how much $300 a month can do to help somebody pay their rent. The last thing that SIP does is we have a GAP fund, and we once a year we give somebody who's trying to move from transitional housing into permanent housing a stipend for 6 months to a year. So if the landlord says, well, you don't have quite enough money, Shelter in Peace says, we promise you that we will pay you X amount of money every month for 6 months to a year. So please rent to this family. We frequently get donations that are, the donor wants their money to be designated just for our GAP fund funding for these individual families. So our total goal is really to try to help people, refugees, immigrants, and low-income people, find a way to live in the community of Alameda. Shelter in Peace is currently in Alameda and San Leandro. We've had contact with the mayor of Berkeley, and we're looking at trying to move into Berkeley. And we've had contact with the president of Catholic Charities in Santa Clara County with the hope of extending into Santa Clara County. What is Shelter in Peace needs? Well, what we need are rental units. If you know anybody who has a rental unit who's willing to rent it at a little bit lower than market price, I'd love to be put in contact with them. It becomes a almost an addiction. You see one family move into a house, they walk in and they see that they have a house after not having one, and they start crying. And they get really happy because they're gonna be able to raise their children at least for a year in a house. And after you do that once, you want to do it over and over and over again. We clearly can always use money. We can use volunteers. We would love somebody who might be interested in fundraising or grant writing, marketing, helping us build relationships as we have with the city of Alameda and now the city of Berkeley. So anybody who wants to work with refugees or immigrants to help them find a place to live in our country, we'd love to hear from. I think I have a couple more minutes, and I'd like to tell you the story of our latest family, because these are people and their stories are just touching and beyond anything that I think I could actually survive in. So our latest family came from the country of Haiti. They were in Haiti prior to the gangs taking over, but they suffered a lot of gang violence. They left there and they went to Chile, because you can go from Haiti to Chile without a visa. And when they got to Chile, they found out that there was a lot of discrimination there against people with dark skin. And so the couple, a mom and dad, really thought about, well, how do we get to the United States? How do we get out of here? And they spent some time thinking about that and saving money. And then they had a baby. And then the dad got beat up once, and it was like, it's time to leave. So this young couple with their 2-month-old baby walked from the tip of Chile to Brownsville, Texas. They spent a few months out in a camp, a dirt area that flooded and got muddy. They went to the horrible gap in Panama, and they managed to get through to Texas. After a while, they got the papers that they get on their cell phone now that allow them to come into the States legally. So they went through immigration, and immigration sent them to the Catholic Church down the road in Brownsville. And they went there, and that priest said, take a bus to San Antonio, Texas, because they have a really big, Catholic Church has a really big refugee immigration center there. So they took the bus, used their last bit of money to get there. And after a couple of days, the priest there, for some reason, we don't know who he was, we will never know why he did it, he said to this family, go to Alameda, they'll take care of you there. I have absolutely no idea why. And he gave them 2 tickets to fly to SFO. What he didn't do was let anybody in Alameda know they were coming. And he didn't give them any contact information. So the mom and the dad and their little girl, who was now about 8 months old, ended up at SFO. They got off the plane and they spent 2 days in the airport not knowing what to do, because they didn't even know what Alameda was. And some Uber driver who spoke Spanish saw the man crying. And he went up to him and said, what are you crying about? What's the problem? And the man said, we're supposed to go to Alameda, but we don't know what Alameda is. And the Uber driver said, I'll take you there. And he didn't charge him. He just said he would take them there. And so they brought them to Alameda, dropped them off at City Hall, and said, okay, you're in Alameda. And City Hall called Welcome the Stranger and Shelter in Peace and St. Vincent de Paul and said, can you do anything for this family? And just the night before, Welcome the Stranger had had a meeting. We had taken 3 months off to rest. And the night before, we had said, we're ready to take on a new family. And the next morning, we had a new family. And Shelter in Peace had just had somebody the week before move out of one of their units. And so we had a Shelter in Peace house. We had a Welcome and Strangers support group. We had help from St. Vincent de Paul. And we went and we picked up the family, and they've started a new life. They've been here about 8 months. They're learning English. The little girl is now 2, and her English is amazing. She's in preschool. And again, you do that once or twice and you're completely addicted. So I'm very happy to be able to share this with you. I'm happy to be able to answer any questions you might have. And I thank you very much for your interest in refugees and immigrants and low-income people. Any questions?
Thank you so much. If anyone wants to post any questions in the chat, or also just feel free to unmute yourself and ask Anna directly. All right, well, my one question is, sounds like such a tremendous organization. Thank you so much for sharing all this. because we are a political group, my question would be related to, does Shelter and Peace get involved in like support from a policy perspective, or more that like take initiatives, take stances, or look for support for offering more support to refugees and immigrants from like a policy perspective?
We have to be careful because we are a nonprofit, but
Yeah.
we do get into organizations that talk about refugee and immigrant and low-income housing and that support, and we do try to provide whatever support we can within the realms of the lawyer. Again, I'm a lawyer, and so I'm constantly thinking, okay, not going to go over this line, not going to go over that line. But yes, we definitely do voice what our experience is as to what refugees and immigrants need in order to survive in this country. We let them in, but we don't give them the support that they actually need.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, I have a question. Hi, I'm Michelle Pryor. I'm a resident here at Alameda. What are you the contact person if anybody wanted to donate their time or money or anything like that?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And then I was just going to ask, and I'm sure you will do this, like put the information in the chat, or does it get emailed to all of us?
I think that I gave somebody some handouts. Meredith, was that you?
Yeah, so
Okay.
there were handouts in the meeting email that was sent around, but we will also send, Anna, if it's okay, we'll resend that information after this so that people who want to get involved can get in touch with you.
And the handouts have our mission statement. They have contact information. I think there's a brochure, and there's this article that if my mom was alive would have made her really happy. My picture's on the front of the Catholic Voice talking about Welcome the Stranger. And there's a lot of information about Welcome the Stranger and the Shelter and Peace in the article. But yeah, there's contact information in the handouts. And I'm happy to put my name and phone number on any wall I can find. So whatever you need.
Yeah, anyway, it's just a wonderful little story. I'm walking around as I'm listening and I'm like crying. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm crying as I'm walking. Anyway.
Yeah, the reality is every single family we place, their story is just heartbreaking. And when you step back and you see all of these families and they get into the country legally, most of them are with documents, but they don't have the support to have a new life. One of our families was two couples and a teenage boy, and they've been living in a car for 8 months. And how do you raise a teenager in a car? I just don't. Other ones have been living on the street under bypasses. They all have stories that just break your heart. Any other?
I'd also like to thank Anna. This is Trish. Hi, Anna.
How are you doing?
And I do remember you coming to, City Hall, and I'm happy that the city was able to, to help you. And it's really nice to hear all of the work, that's happened since then. Honestly, it's wonderful. So thank you for sharing the story, and thank you to, everyone that helps out. It's great. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much for the city, because the city, we have units, but a 4-bedroom unit is almost impossible to get. And so many of our families either have large families or 2 families together can live in that unit, which really helps them financially. And you were the ones that let us in the door, so I really appreciate it, Trish. Anybody?
You're welcome.
Well, if not, I will let you send out the information, and please reach out to me personally. I'm more than happy to talk to anyone at any time about almost anything. And I appreciate very much you letting me be here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate you joining us and taking time out of your evening to share all that you do and how we can get involved.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Right. All right. So next on the agenda, Austin, are you ready?
Yes, good evening.
Great.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Austin Tam, and I wanted to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all today. I have lived in Alameda for my whole life. I am an unapologetic and compassionate social justice activist, advocate, disability advocate, and someone with lived experience. I have also worked on many elected official campaigns in Alameda over the years and advocate on behalf of a slew of human rights and social justice issues, such as helping to end the genocide in Gaza and occupation in Gaza and Palestine that's been going on for the last 75 years, and affordable housing, being part of We Need Hope, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting affordable housing in the city of Alameda, in which took over 20 years to even have any council member or mayor talk about affordable housing. There was a lot of pushback, but eventually we got everyone to speak about affordable housing and support affordable housing in some way. Also, disability rights issues and other issues that need our attention, I am passionate about, especially intersectionally. My activism and advocacy is in my blood, starting with my late beloved father, Nielsen Tam, who was a voice and advocate on behalf of marginalized people, who was a voice for the racial justice and social justice issues, and helped to promote equity at a time when it was very unpopular. And my mother, who served on the City of Alameda Social Service Community Human Relations Board, and now my brother Chris Tam and sister-in-law Rose Tam, who helped to form All Good Living Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping students and families in need. And their foundation was founded with the mission of creating positive change in a community by providing essential resources and support to those who need it most. I was elected in March of this year, 2024, to the Alameda County Democratic Central Committee, which is my second term. I was first elected in March of 2020. And before that, I was elected as the ADEM in 2019, which is a delegate for California Democratic Party, which helps to influence who the delegates to the convention are. And the ADEMs are important because big decisions get made at the state convention about which candidates and ballot measures to endorse and what ends up in the state Democratic Party platform. And also, I ran to be a voice for those without a voice and to bring up issues that we need to talk about, such as Palestine. And Alameda County Democratic Central Committee is pretty much the party's best kept secret. It is the gateway to California Democratic Party for people who want to run for elected office, whatever it may be. They need to come through us in order to get endorsed. Community members of the Central Committee are elected every 4 years. We represent all of Alameda County, include 5 assembly districts, which is Assembly District 18, Alameda, Oakland, and Emeryville. The Central Committee functions as the local body of the California Democratic Party, and it determines what candidates will be endorsed and supported by the party and how the money will be spent across the country. On November 1st, along with other colleagues of mine, we drafted and introduced a ceasefire resolution to oppose the genocide happening in Gaza and Palestine, and to oppose the genocide happening in Gaza and Palestine in real time. And we also voted on 2 resolutions opposing recalls, one being Madam DA Pamela Price, who was democratically elected in 2022, the first African-American woman. And we need to oppose this racist recall and call it for what it is. It's pretty much, we want to help protect the women. And the other being Oakland Mayor Sheng Tao. It's no excellent that it's 2 women of color, and both that was recently elected to this office. Both elected in their own right, and I hope all of you will strongly oppose these 2 recalls. And also, the Alameda County Democratic Central Committee has been holding endorsement forums for open seats, such as the one in San Leandro and the 2 in the city of Berkeley. And what we're doing right now is setting up headquarters locally United Democratic Campaign, or UDC. Alameda has traditionally had one. We are endorsing candidates in August and September, getting door hangers on doors with all our endorsed candidates, doing get out the vote once ballots drop, helping volunteers get to swing states and swing congressional districts so we can take back the House, running voter protection campaigns at the state and local level, and also debate watch parties often happen, but most importantly, voter contact and slate cards for candidates. If you have any questions about, oh, and also we, besides resolutions, we also introduce legislations through the year. And also, if you have any questions about legislations that we are supporting, please contact my colleague and friend, Joanna. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Excellent. Are there any questions for Austin? All right, Howard.
Yes, Howard, I'm also a member of the club and an alternate on the Central Committee. Austin, don't you want to tell everyone that you were elected to the Democratic State Central Committee's Executive Board and are going to a meeting next weekend to represent the entire county?
Yes, thank you. I also was humbly elected, appointed by Howard to be on the Central Committee, to be on Alameda, California Executive Board. That meets next weekend.
Okay, and I just want to just mention the Executive Board will be voting on members of the Democratic DNC and doing other issues. And I think it's really important to realize that the county only elects 3 males and 3 females to the Executive Board. So Alameda should be really proud that one of these members is Austin, who's been doing a fantastic job on the Central Committee.
That's great to hear. Thank you, Howard, and congratulations, Austin. We're
you.
glad to have you there representing Alameda.
Good job.
Yeah. All right, I see a question from, is it Jeannie Nader?
Oh, sorry, I don't have a question.
Okay.
But thank you, Austin, for that update. That was really helpful.
And also, I've been part of the Alameda Families for Ceasefire, Meredith.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And I think maybe after next week, maybe we can check back with you and Howard and see what were some of the takeaways coming out of the executive board meeting for the Democratic Party. And, you know, if there are initiatives that we as the local city party can support and get behind.
Especially with the upcoming election and the re-election for Biden, and how we can help as clubs with Central Committee efforts. If there's anything.
All right, great. Well, thank you all for joining us on this beautiful sunny evening in Alameda. Hopefully this summer we can get more in-person meetups, but from a scheduling perspective, just hosting virtually just worked out a little better this time. But thank you, everyone. Thank you, Austin. Thank you, Anna. And everyone, have a great evening, and we will be in touch about fundraising next month.
Let's do it.
All right. Bye, everyone.
See everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.